Hello guys and welcome back to yet another video. I hope you are all well. Next week the EFL Championship season kicks off. I can't believe it, we're nearly there. We're going to have one final look at the bookies predictions and odds for the upcoming season. The final look. Now we did look at the bookmakers early predictions and odds at the start of the summer transfer window, and I thought it'd be interesting to look today to see how much their minds have changed based on transfer activity and all kinds of activity like transfer embargoes and so on and so forth. Guys, if you haven't already shared your predictions for the upcoming season, feel free to do so in the comments. Myself and Sophie did our 1 to 24 championship predictions last week, so go check it out. Drop a like on this video, let's go for 2,000, subscribe as well, and let's see what the bookmakers have to say with the season kicking off next week. So then, the bookmakers have a bottom three of Sheffield Wednesday, Oxford United and Hull City. If you support one of these three, remember this is the bookies prediction, although I have actually got two of these three in my prediction to go down. Sheffield Wednesday, okay, no great surprises. What's interesting, of course, is how much the bookies have changed their minds since we looked at this back in, what was it, late May, early June? They had them 5 places higher in 19th place, and unsurprisingly, they've dropped them to bottom of the table. I think a lot of people are going to have Sheffield Wednesday to struggle this season, and it's all because of the off-the-pitch nonsense, which is obviously going to affect the on-the-pitch stuff, because with a transfer embargo, how are you meant to bring in any players? The manager, Danny Roll, who of course most of us like, he's still there, but is he coming or is he going? I don't think we know half the time. So yeah, with Chansiri still there and all that chaos, yeah, they've got to be bottom. Oxford United, interesting. Now the bookies did have Oxford 23rd when we last looked at this. They've still got them 23rd. Okay, right, I get it that their transfer activity might not have set the world on fire, but I still think after what they did last season, I think they might just have enough to stay up. I'm mainly putting that down to Gary Rowett. They have got a good squad, of course, as well. I'm curious to know what the bookmakers' thinking is for this. Is it down to club size? Remember, of course, that the bookies do determine odds based on what most people might put their money on. I don't know. I don't know the thinking behind this. I personally haven't got Oxford in there, but the bookies do. And then Hull City in 22nd, down 4 places since we last looked at this. They were predicted 18th when we looked at this at the end of May. Of course, since then, a transfer embargo. That's never going to help. Like I say, they did bring in 1 or 2 decent players. I do like Semi Ajayi, but I just think goals are going to be a problem. So I do agree with Hull and Sheffield Wednesday in my prediction. Interesting that they've got Oxford United to go down, though. Right, let's move up the table. Going into next season then, the bookies have got Charlton, QPR and Pompey as the 3 teams they think will just get over the line. Charlton up 3 places. When we last looked at this, it was not long after they'd just won the League One playoff final. And in fairness, I think a lot of people thought straight away, if you're going to do a prediction at the end of May, yeah, maybe their squad's not going to be good enough. But of course, their transfer activity has impressed quite a few people. I do like the signing of Alafe in particular. And I do think with Nathan Jones, you've always got a fighting chance. So the bookies have moved them up 3 places and got Charlton safe. I will say though that most bookmakers have Charlton and Hull City with similar odds, so it's really neck and neck between those two. Queen's Park Rangers have stayed in 20th place. Interesting. Last time we looked at this, they were predicted 20th. They're still predicted 20th. Their transfer activity has not been too bad. Kwame Poku is the one that I'm really excited by. I really want to see him do well in the Championship. Of course, we've seen a change in management. 1 or 2 pre-season results, not great, but I don't know how much we look into that. I am surprised QPR are predicted 20th. I've got them, I think, 12th myself. And then Portsmouth, 19th. To be fair, the bookmakers have moved them up since we last looked at this. At the end of May, they had them in 21st place, so they've moved up 2 places. But I personally, once again, have got Pompey. I think I've got them in the top half in my prediction. I do like the general trajectory of this club under John Mousinho. So if you're a Pompey fan that's feeling optimistic coming into the new season, the bookies are writing you off. That might be a good thing if you want to put a couple of quid on it and you want to prove some people wrong. Let's move up a few more places. Preston, Blackburn and Derby County. Preston have moved up 4 places since we last looked at the bookies' predictions for next season. I'm going to put that down to quite a lot of transfer activity. They have brought in quite a few players. Paul Heckingbottom as well, of course, an experienced gaffer. And, I mean, they've got to push on next season. They can't be flirting with danger as much as they were last season. I think I do expect a few people in their predictions this season to put Preston down there. I think Sophie's got them to go down. I've seen 1 or 2 other Championship content creators saying Preston will go down. I suppose the question is, have they brought in enough quality? They've brought in plenty of players, but are they really going to cut it and drag Preston kicking and screaming up the division? The bookmakers say yes, they've got them up a couple places. Blackburn Rovers in 17th place are down 1 place since we last looked at this. They've actually swapped places with Derby, who've moved up 1 place. I do think at the start of every season, Blackburn are a team that are underestimated somewhat and prove a lot of people wrong. I suppose, once again, I've said it before, the chaos off the pitch with the Venkies does put a few people off, but then they can surprise a few people. So can Valérien Ismail do that? What's interesting with Blackburn and Derby is, are they going to form a bit of a rivalry now, the John Eustace Derby? Because Derby are bringing in loads of players from Blackburn we've already touched on. They've now brought in Owen Beck, of course, from Liverpool, who was at Blackburn with John Eustace. He loves going back to his old players. I do rate Owen Beck, by the way. I personally have got Derby, I think, a little bit higher than where the bookies do. I think a mid-table season is probably about right. Let's move right into the middle of the table. We've got Stoke, then Swansea, then Watford. Once again, not a lot to separate some of these teams when it comes to the odds. I think a lot of this, I think the mid-table region is going to be really hard to predict this season. Feel free to give it a go yourself, because there's really not a lot to separate some of these teams. And it does stretch as far down as the relegation battle, because other than Sheffield Wednesday, and I suppose Hull have got a transfer embargo, but other than Sheffield Wednesday, I think the relegation battle is wide open. And if you're a mid-table team with not much momentum and you haven't had great transfer business, you could get pulled into it this season. Stoke City are one that nearly got dragged into it last season. Of course, they survived on the final day. They're predicted 15th, which is down 1 place since we last looked at the bookies' predictions. They have brought in quite a few players, to be fair to them. And of course, with Mark Robins, they've got a manager who has performed well at this division before, but always with Coventry. Can he do something good with Stoke City, a club that I think never live up to some of the expectations? 15th wouldn't be a great season for Stoke, mind, considering club size, but then, like I say, they always finish in the bottom half of the table. But like I say, some of the transfer business has been pretty good. Swansea 14th, maybe a little bit harsh from the bookmakers. They've got them down 1 place. Once again, I do think Swansea City's business has been quite good. I feel like they've gone for it in this transfer window, and after how they ended last season, the points per game that Alan Sheehan was bashing out, if they take that into the start of next season, then they're definitely in the playoff conversation. And then 13th, Watford. I think Watford, you chuck them in the middle and hope it sticks, because I don't think you know what you're going to get with the change in management almost every summer. I've got them a little bit lower, but I'm absolutely open to people saying higher, or even in the top half, to be honest. This is up 2 places since we last looked at this. Since we looked at this, I think Tom Cleverley got sacked, and then Paolo Pezzolano, of course, came in. And it does look like the bookies fancy Watford a little bit more as a result of that. So they've got them right in the middle of the table. And I will just quickly repeat the point, by the way, that if you're watching this prediction from the bookmakers and thinking, I don't like this, I think my team's going to finish higher than that, then that's an incentive for you to prove them wrong and maybe put a couple quid on it. I don't want to encourage that, because this video isn't actually sponsored, so we won't say that, but you get my point. Right, top half. 12th, Millwall. 11th, Bristol City. 10th, Wrexham. In fact, none of these have moved since we last looked at this. Millwall, I've got them a little bit higher. Their business has been quite good. Obviously, Coburn came in. They got a bit of money for Fleming going out. They've just signed Massimo Luongo, by the way. Decent signing. I think at a minimum 12th, but I've got them, I think, 9th. I think Millwall will be sniffing for the playoffs. I like Alex Neil. 11th, Bristol City. I think when I've looked at a lot of people's predictions for this season, Bristol City are considered to be, a top half team chasing the playoffs, but not quite getting in there this season. Maybe that's down to the transition with the change in management. And then 10th, Wrexham. I think the bookies are always going to be quite hot on Wrexham. Their business has, should we say they've climbed the gears in terms of their transfer activity? O'Brien coming in, Windass coming in. That's good experience. And they've approached Christian Eriksen. If that actually happens, if Christian Eriksen goes to Wrexham in the Championship, then that is a madness. Top 10. I'm curious to see what a lot of you guys have to say on Wrexham. They're probably the hardest team to predict this season. They're a very divisive topic. I've got them staying up pretty comfortably, but just inside the bottom half. Some people are going to have them to struggle. I do wonder if they're going to prove a lot of people wrong, though. That is what Wrexham are best at. Next up then, and just missing out on the playoffs, we have Norwich, Middlesbrough and West Brom. Norwich are still 9th since we last looked at this. Middlesbrough have moved down 2 places. West Brom have moved up 1 place. Norwich are a tricky one at the moment, because I think it all hinges on Josh Sargent. With Signs and Rowe going, if Sargent goes as well, you think, oh my God, where are the goals going to come from? But if they hold on to Sargent, I think they could get into the playoffs because their business improving the defence has been really good, and I like Liam Manning. So Norwich are a weird one at the minute. They're sort of like teetering on, are they going to make the playoffs, are they not? I think it genuinely does come down to Josh Sargent. Feel free to share your thoughts if you agree on that. 8th, Middlesbrough. So when we last looked at this, Middlesbrough still had Michael Carrick and they were predicted 6th. Since then they got rid of him, they brought in Rob Edwards and Adi Vivash, and they've actually moved down 2 places, so the bookmakers are not fancying Middlesbrough as much now. They have just brought in Alfie Jones from Hull. I think that's a decent signing, but they've been a bit slow to get off the mark with the transfer business, so they're leaving it late, and maybe that's why the bookies have moved them down a place or 2. West Brom 7th, up 1 place since we last looked at this. Of course, since we last looked at this, they've now brought in a manager in Ryan Mason, and the business has started to get going. I'm a massive fan of the Nat Phillips signing. I've said it too many times now, but I think they're going to be pretty solid at the back. And yeah, I think West Brom, you've got to have them right next to the playoffs, if not in them. Let's move into the playoffs. Look at this, 3 Midlands teams. Leicester, Coventry, Birmingham. Leicester also, like Wrexham, one of the hardest teams to predict this season. And for Leicester, it's obviously because of the possible points deduction. How much is it going to be? Is it going to be 2 points deductions? I think when I'm trying to discount the off-the-pitch stuff, I'm trying to look on the pitch, and I think they've still got a really good team. I do like Marty Cifuentes. Like I've said before, though, him coming in wasn't like me thinking, oh, right, okay, they're going to win the league now. But he is a good manager. I think because of the off-the-pitch stuff, it probably does knock them out of the top 2 race. If there wasn't a points deduction, I think this squad could definitely compete for the top 2. But I think even with a points deduction, playoffs has got to be the minimum, and that's where the bookies have them. It is worth taking into consideration. It depends how you look at the bookmakers' predictions, because Leicester are tipped to be more likely to get promoted than West Brom and Middlesbrough, the teams obviously below them here. But they're also tipped to be more likely to be relegated than West Brom and Middlesbrough, because of the points deduction and off-the-pitch stuff. Not that they're favourites to be relegated, but they are tipped to be promoted and relegated with higher odds than the teams around them, if that makes sense. 5th, Coventry. It feels like our spiritual home. We've finished in 5th in 2 of the last 3 seasons, and I've got a 6th this season. But if I wasn't to have a 6th, I'd probably have a 5th. I think there or thereabouts. I personally don't think we're quite ready to challenge for the top 2. Don't get me wrong, I think Lampard did fantastic last season, and I really, really hope we can push for top 2 next season. I really hope we do, but I'm trying to be grounded and just think parachute payment teams are always going to be difficult to get past. Carl Rushworth coming in fills me with more confidence. I think after Dovin's injury, Collins and Wilson, they're just not number 1 goalkeepers if you're a top 6 championship team. Wilson's okay, but look, Rushworth coming in, good keeper. I still think I'd like a bit more experience, maybe 1 more centre-back and 1 more striker, but then am I getting a bit greedy here? We have got decent strikers, it's just that they're inconsistent, which frustrates the Coventry fans. 5th place anyway, share your thoughts, Coventry fans. 4th is Birmingham, but I must say that they are pretty much the same odds as the team that's predicted 3rd, which we'll come on to in a minute. I have predicted Birmingham City to finish 4th this season. I thought I was being bold when I said that, but now I think about it, I don't know if I am. I think a lot of people are going to have them quite high. The bookies do, actually. Interesting, though, that the bookies had Birmingham to finish 4th when we looked at this at the end of May, and they've still got them 4th, even though, as I've said, they've absolutely smashed it in the transfer window. They've brought in so many good players. I would have thought they might have climbed a place or 2 based on that. But like I say, they are pretty much joint with 3rd place, who we're going to come on to in a second. Birmingham fans, share your thoughts. I've said before, I'm a little bit nervous about you guys. Right, 3rd place, Sheffield United. 2nd, Southampton. 1st, Ipswich. I will say, actually, since we last looked at the bookies' predictions, the top 5 haven't changed in any order, by the way. Ipswich were 1st, Southampton 2nd, so on and so forth. Sheffield United, I've got them 3rd as well, actually, this season. I like that they've kept most of the team from last season. Still think Hamer's an interesting one. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Because Hamer going maybe does nudge them below Birmingham for my prediction, but he's still there at the moment. Sellers, I like. I do feel like Chris Wilder is more of a cult hero at Sheffield United, and I always like that, even if you don't like Chris Wilder, because I know he's a bit like Marmite. But I think Ruben Sellers, you could maybe say, won't let his emotions get in the way somewhat. I like them as a minimum. I think at a minimum 3rd place for Sheffield United, but they might sneak into the top 2. If they can get off to a better start than the 2 in front of them, then yeah, can they stay in front of them? Second, Southampton, I've got them to win the league. I really like the squad, but I've got to be honest, there's not much between Southampton and Ipswich. I think more people are actually going to have Ipswich to win the league, but the bookmakers do have Ipswich. When it comes to separating them, I just think that they've both got brilliant squads. I like the managers. Kieran McKenna's definitely got more continuity at Ipswich than Will Still coming in, but Southampton are going to completely back Will Still. I think he's an exciting up-and-coming manager. Ipswich, though, I do wonder, because they've lost Morsey, the captain, that is a big blow. I know they've still got so many good players. Delap's gone, of course, we didn't expect him to stay. Hutchinson, we think he's going to go, of course. And I wonder, don't get me wrong, brilliant team, but a lot of the last 2 years was momentum, which they created, by the way. I'm not taking anything away from Ipswich, but they were just going from strength to strength and kind of overperforming in some ways. I mean, yeah, let's be honest. To finish top 2 in the Championship in that season, when you had Leeds' squad, which was worth so much more, I just wonder, with Ipswich coming down from the Premier League, have they lost any momentum? I don't think they've lost lots of momentum. I think the main thing is continuity, because getting relegated from the Premier League is not a disgrace when you're a team that's come up from League One. I don't think there's much to separate them, is the point I'm making here. The interesting thing is both Southampton and Ipswich haven't done a lot of business. Ipswich have signed Ashley Young, by the way. That's an interesting one. Good experience to bring in. Yeah, I've got nothing between them. The bookies have Southampton second and Ipswich first. Feel free to share your thoughts. I think that is going to be the top 2 this season, but maybe Birmingham and Sheffield United will give it a go. Guys, share your thoughts. That is the bookies' final predictions for the upcoming 25-26 Championship season. It starts next week. I can't wait. Come on, let's do this. The weekly predictions with Sophie are going to return next week, so look out for that. Make sure to support the channel, drop a like and subscribe. Thank you for your support. I will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Peace out.